I still vividly remember that crazy night from when I was 14 years old. It all started when my folks decided to head out for their anniversary, leaving me in charge of my little 7-year-old sister, Lily. They were planning on being out the whole night, so I had to take on the role of the responsible older brother. As the evening turned into night, I tried to stay awake, keeping an eye on the clock. Lily was sound asleep in her room, blissfully unaware of the world outside. The house was super quiet, with only the gentle hum of the fridge and the occasional car passing by, breaking the silence. My parents had drilled into me to lock all the doors and windows, even though our suburban neighborhood had always been peaceful. After that, I went straight to bed. Around midnight, I got woken up by Lily, shaking me gently. She had this look of sheer terror in her big brown eyes and whispered that someone was repeatedly ringing our doorbell. That was odd, and a sense of dread washed over me. It was way too late for any visitors. As I barely dragged myself out of bed, trying to shake off my drowsiness, I heard the unmistakable sound of breaking glass. My heart went into overdrive, and the creeping footsteps in the hallway didn't help my nerves. It hit me like a ton of bricks. Our home was being invaded. Calling 911 was out of the question. The landline was in the living room, and I wasn't about to venture out there. I grabbed Lily's hand and ushered her into the closet, desperately trying to keep her quiet as she clung to me, trembling like a leaf. The footsteps were getting closer, and I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. I strained my ears, hoping to catch what the intruders were saying, but their voices were hushed and muffled. It felt like they were right outside the closet door, just when it seemed like our hiding spot would be discovered. A miracle happened. Our neighbor, Mr. Anderson, burst into the house. He'd been awake and heard the glass break, so he decided to check things out. The intruders must have freaked out when they heard him and bolted. Slow, sneaky footsteps turned loud and rushed. Then, in the dark, we heard a single gunshot. Lily and I clung to each other, tears streaming down our faces. We knew someone had been hurt, and the terror of it all was suffocating. A while later, we heard the screech of tires, hoping the two guys had made a run for it. We stayed put, not daring to leave the closet just yet. The silence was unbearable, and our muffled sobs were the only sounds, until we heard our neighbor cry in pain. I must check on Mr. Anderson. He needs my help. I told Lily to stay put and be brave. Slowly, I ventured out of the closet, my heart still racing, and got into hallway. What I saw gave me chills. Mr. Anderson was on the floor, blood seeping from a gunshot wound. Panic coursed through me as I dialed 911, trying my best to keep my voice steady. I grabbed a pile of clean towels, hoping to stop the bleeding as best I could. The minutes felt like hours as I waited for help. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder by the second. It felt like an eternity, but eventually, the paramedics arrived and rushed Mr. Anderson into an ambulance. The police were called, and they quickly got in touch with my parents, who rushed home in shock and disbelief. Mr. Anderson pulled through, but the bad guys were never caught. It was a night that left scars on all of us. Lily and I discovered what it meant to be truly brave, and Mr. Anderson's selflessness is something I'll never forget. In my youth, I wasn't exactly a role model, especially when I lost myself in drugs. I was down on luck, so I decided I shall take it from others. A scum, junkie, and a thief. That's what I'd become. I set my eyes on one house, big and expensive looking. For weeks, I'd been watching its lone resident, a man probably in his early 50s, a pedant and a man of habit. Every day, his program was the same. Leave at 9 a.m., come back at 6 p.m., leave again at 10 p.m., and return at 1 a.m. The neighborhood went completely quiet, well before 11 p.m., so that gave me enough time to do my thing. The day came when I was about to earn some dishonest living. The man came out of the house and entered his car at 10, per usual. I smoked a cigarette while waiting for him to get far, and then I jumped into action. I moved in the shadows and reached the back door. Over the years, I got plenty of practice, so picking the lock was not that hard and time-consuming. Entering a house, I felt unease like never before. Every cell in my body was telling me to turn back, but of course I didn't listen. I was already in, so I might take a look. I ended up in the kitchen. Not many riches to find there. I roamed around the house and so far found nothing of value. The house looked ordinary but strange at the same time. There wasn't a single plant or painting, and it was all clean and tidy. Everything was organized, too organized, if you ask me. Not a speck of dirt anywhere. The house smelled of chemicals and something strange and unpleasant. The only valuable thing I found was a broken golden watch on the night table next to a neatly made bed. I took it and stashed it in my pocket, hoping it could be fetched for some decent money. I was disappointed. I thought it would be a more profitable evening. I continued roaming the house when I found a door, a locked door to the basement. Who locks the door to the basement in their house? There must be something good and expensive. It gave me much more trouble than the lock on the back door. After quite a struggle, I managed to open it, only to be welcomed by the sight of a short, empty hall. My heart jumped with excitement. I had heard about secret rooms and hidden passages, but I'd never seen one. I hastily got down there and looked carefully. I touched and pushed on the walls when suddenly a panel came off the wall, revealing another door. I didn't hesitate and opened them right away. My mind raced with thoughts of what I would find. Did I break into some drug dealer's home? Maybe he is a chemist cooking the stuff. The hidden room I stumbled upon in that eerie basement was like something out of a nightmare. It was a stark, sterile chamber, a place that felt like it had been torn from the pages of a horror novel. In the center of the room, there was a metal operation table, gleaming under harsh fluorescent lights. It looked like something you'd find in a gruesome operating theater. On a smaller table nearby, an assortment of surgical tools lay neatly arranged. Saws, knives, clippers, scalpels, and other instruments of grim purpose. What truly sent shivers down my spine were the jars. There were dozens of them, neatly lined up on shelves that covered one entire wall. Each jar held a grotesque specimen suspended in a clear yellowish fluid. Inside these jars, I saw hewn organs, preserved with an eerie precision. Intestines coiled like snakes, kidneys floating like lilies, a heart frozen in mid-beat, eyes staring lifelessly, a tongue forever silenced, and hands contorted into unnatural poses. It was a nightmarish collection, a grotesque assembly of human anatomy that defied any logical explanation. The room was cold, devoid of emotion, and seemed to exist solely for one sinister purpose. The air was thick with the scent of chemicals, an unsettling combination of antiseptic and something more disturbing, something I couldn't quite identify. As I stood there, frozen in terror and disbelief, I couldn't fathom what kind of person would keep such a nightmarish chamber hidden beneath an ordinary suburban home. Amidst this gruesome display, there was a large freezer. My heart raced as I slowly approached it, fearing the worst. I couldn't help but imagine what horrifying secrets might be concealed within it. I grabbed the lid and slowly lifted, when suddenly I heard doors open. I completely panicked, preparing for the worst, knowing what would happen if he finds me here. I tried to sneak away, but he was heading straight to the basement. I did the only thing I could think of. I hid behind the door, and when he got near, I jumped him, pushing him with full force against the wall, and I bolted out the front door. I ran and ran. I kept running until I puked. On my way home, I was looking over my shoulder. Every random sound made me jump, thinking he's coming for me, but he didn't. I got home safely and called the police. I gave an anonymous tip, told them what I saw, and even told them the truth of how I found out. A few days later, I decided to take a stroll through his neighborhood, this time at daylight. Just a casual stroll. I was curious about what happened to him, or if the police even took my tip seriously. Apparently not, because to my surprise, the man left his house and started walking in my direction. The blood froze in my veins as he got closer, staring directly into my eyes. I could feel his murderous gaze. He approached me and told me he wanted it back. The watches. He told me it had sentimental value because he took it from his first victim. With icy sweat forming on my forehead, I played a fool and told him I didn't know what he was talking about and hastily walked away. As I walked, I heard him from behind. He just laughed and told me, "I know who you are, Mr. Jefferson Street." My heart skipped a beat as I heard him, for I really do live on Jefferson Street. The very next day, I packed my stuff and left the city. I came back home, a small rural town. I left behind my criminal and dark past, and I turned a new leaf. I got clean, got myself a decent job, and became a role model. But I never returned the watch. I kept it for myself, as a reminder to never go back down that path.